Welcome to Geetmala 100.7 FM on Wednesday night live with Paris on Chin Radio FM 100.7. And today I have two special guests joining me for a very special interview here on air. Our first guest is the president of TRREB, Miss Lisa Patel. Welcome to Geetmala.
Hi, Paris, and hello, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Happy Wednesday.
Thank you, and same to you.
Thank you so much. Well, the second guest whom I have is Ranjit Dhaliwal from Clarity Financial Branch. How are you today?
Great, brother. Always great to be around you. Love this energy, right?
This is Energy with Paris at its very best. And today, as we got hold of...
Paris, isn't it synergy, really? Because you shed some synergy and everybody else is getting that light and we're just spreading it all over.
For sure.
1 + 1 = 3.
Absolutely. Where energy flows, synergy grows. How about that?
Nice.
That works.
There you go.
And money grows as well. Well, today we have some very cool people on air with us, and we'll be discussing a lot of things as far as financial market is concerned, real estate market is concerned, because we have two experts, President of Clarity Financial, Ranjit Dhaliwal, who's been with us on air for over 20 years now, and Miss Lisa Patel, who's been an incredible president for TRREB.
I feel like we need like a drum or something for him. 20 years.
Dang, dang. Yeah, I know.
Next time I'll have to bring the instruments.
Well,
got some sound there, Brian? Brian's going to have it all set up next time.
Yeah. So what do you think about the market right now, Ranjit? 20 years on Geetmala?
20 years on Geetmala.
How do you see this market changing in the last 20 years?
Well, let's talk about last 2 weeks first. The market is absolutely on fire. It is unbelievable. Never thought it would go up this quickly, this fast. In fact, in the beginning of COVID last year, we're talking March, I actually anticipated the prices going down, that the market is going to be softening. And in fact, we geared up we have a organization called the Canadian Real Estate Investment Club. And we fired up our members saying that, hey, get ready for some deals coming your way. And it only took, Paris, maybe a month or so for us to reverse that decision, saying, guys, we're not getting any deals. Things are going absolutely nuts. Go grab whatever you can.
I remember we did a talk show on that when the pandemic just
around
hit.
There, yes.
Around that time. And everything has gone the other direction.
It has absolutely gone the other direction. And earlier today in our previous segment, we were talking about the numbers that CMHC came out with recently. As you know, that I sent out an email to a lot of real estate guys out there, real estate people out there that were not very happy me regurgitating that information from CMHC, which basically said that in their worst case scenario that the market could actually drop 47.9%, right? Wow. Unbelievable. I had to actually send out another email after that stating that, hey, I don't believe CMHC. And I happen to be used to be on CMHC's broker advisory board. But in this particular case, in July of last year, the head of CMHC, Mr. Siddell, came out with some numbers that stated something like the real estate market's going to correct to the tune of 9 to 18%. Okay. I didn't really believe them then, Paris. I don't believe them now, this time either. And I reiterated in that particular email that there are so many factors, that the underlying factors are so strong for the Canadian real estate that it's hard to see it correcting, although something that goes up that quickly should really correct, but the underlying numbers are really, really good. First of all, real estate is usually about the movement of people.
Absolutely. Right now, there's no movement.
Well, right now there's no movement, but if you take a look at the macro prospects of immigration, it's only Canada that's taken in people.
True.
Prior to the pandemic, and now post-pandemic, I believe the Trudeau government has got their target is something like 450,000 people per year over the next couple of years.
Starting 2021, which I don't know how it's going to pan out.
Yeah, we don't know. It depends on the vaccine and so on. So that is those are huge numbers, right? The people that are coming in now, they don't really particularly care about. I mean, they care, but they don't. Their decisions, their choices are not impacted as much by where the prices are. They have to buy a house. They got to live somewhere.
Or they have to rent somewhere.
Or they have to rent
Yes,
somewhere,
that's
right?
And that will actually help a lot of the rental segment that we've seen hit. I mean,
Downtown
in
core?
the downtown core. I mean, in the 905s or the surrounding areas of the GTA, rental prices are still up there, and the movement is quite rapid. Whereas when you look at the downtown core, you know, you've still got units that are sitting there for months, or have had to reduce price or come up with some sort of creative means to get rented. I mean, eventually they will be rented.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen a little bit more traction and movement take place in the downtown core, but I find it very interesting in the surrounding regions how quickly the rental of basement apartments or a house go so quick.
Now, let me ask you, you hit the key word right there when you talk about downtown core condo market. Condo market has been soft for a while right now. Do you see it coming back strongly, maybe with a vengeance? Like, what's going to happen with the condo market? Let me ask this first from Lisa, and then we'll take Ranjit.
I know he wants to give an answer.
No.
He's ready. He loves.
Ready, we're ready to
I'd
fight
rather-
for the mic. No,
I've got
I'm just
some
teasing.
like
I'd
great
rather
guests right
hear
now, and this
things from
energy is
Lisa.
so awesome. I can feel the energy right now in this room. Wow.
Well,
Lisa.
you know what? Truthfully, the condo market has already picked up. We're already seeing traction and movement. In fact, in certain parts of the condo market where we've seen multiple offers come back, it's actually very it's a positive sign. And I think a lot of it has to do. I mean, yes, money in one perspective is cheap because interest rates are low. However, at the same time, too, price points are the challenge, right? Like to buy a detached home today, you know, the average being almost 930,000, right? That doesn't appeal to everybody's budget.
I think that's going to change pretty fast.
However, there is that condo market segment, right, which is a great opportunity for people to get in, and it's a great starting point. Or it could be even a great lifestyle point. And I think lifestyle will always play a role no matter what, even though our city isn't buzzing and moving at this moment.
True.
But I mean, think about when that opens up, and you talked about the 400,000 immigrants that are going to be potentially rolled out within the next 3 to 4 years. Right? And I think it's going to be the later part of 2021 or the beginning of 2022 before we actually start seeing that happen. But if you think about that, what is really going to happen to our real estate market? I mean, as hot as it is right now, and I know we touched on the condo market, and you touched on the market, and absolutely correct, Ranjit, when you said it's on fire. Absolutely. We're seeing 15 offers, 35 offers on properties.
72 offers in some cases, 50 offers.
You know, in certain pockets, right, more than others. And we're seeing the surrounding, and it's not just even Toronto anymore. It's all of the GTA. And I will tell you, speaking to counterparts, presidents across Ontario, like I was speaking to the president of Windsor and so forth, you know, they're talking about an increase in sale price of 30%.
That's big.
And TRREB's numbers, of course, everybody's waiting for them because I get those messages. It's the beginning of a new month. Where's our numbers? And
so shed some light there. Lisa, don't be ashamed.
Even Niagara has been on fire.
So
I've sold a lot of properties out there.
I think everywhere in Southern Ontario, probably.
It's not even
right?
Ontario. I'll tell you, it's Canada. So so
wow.
I held meetings across the country with other boards and associations just to find out what's happening, how have they managed through COVID, the whole 9 yards. And I will tell you, across Canada, we're experiencing the same trend. And to add to this, TRREB is also partners with Florida and Miami. And we hosted an event with Florida. Actually, we got another one coming up.
Wow.
And Florida is on fire too.
Florida?
Yes.
Which parts of Florida?
I would have to double check.
I know the market of Miami is hot right now.
And so I will
Fort
tell
Lauderdale.
you that was their response. Their response is the market is busy. So we know that this is a North America thing.
Well, I think it's even beyond North America, actually. Lisa, I've heard some numbers of very strong numbers coming out of Australia as well.
Really?
Yes.
Even
and
in India, I've heard.
India.
Like,
so
very
what is
strong.
happening is for the average person to take advantage of these ridiculously low, record low rates, the only way you can't walk into a bank and say, "Hey, give me $1 million and I'd like to buy some stocks."
I was going to do that. I was going to ask you.
Can I have 10?
But a banker, including us,
Times
we'd be
10.
more than
Times 10.
we'd be more than happy to give you $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million on real estate, right? So investors love real estate, especially Canadian real estate, right? Now, we do have to contend with the stress test and so on. But really, for the first time ever in my 25-year history of being a mortgage broker, it's the first time ever I've seen where the first payment, your first payment out of a 30-year amortization, where more than 50% of that payment is going towards principal.
That is huge. That's
Unheard of.
Yes.
So do prices really even matter?
No.
Right? Because most of your payment is going towards principal.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because I just had this conversation with a realtor a few days ago, and so I speak to our members association all the time.
Yes.
And on a regular basis, I like to hear what's happening in on everybody's street. And of course, it's interesting. We had this chat about how monopoly is just being flooded everywhere. You're going into offer situations of it's no longer 100,000 over, it's 200,000.
We sold a property 2 days ago. My brokerage, Michael Finney, he sold 300,000 over asking.
I just saw one right now. I was looking at the property for a client of mine yesterday at 950,000. It was a detached here, listed in Brampton and the end section. And so we were looking at it. You know what? Our standard semi-detaches with basement apartments, that they're typically around the same price. They're going for about 850, 900,000 these days. That, hey, why not get this detached? It's got a double car garage. It's much bigger.
For sure.
And might as well go for something like that.
Yeah.
Well, we just found out today that that one sold for $1,250, $1.25 million. Right?
Wow.
300,000 over again.
But again,
so you're right.
I'm not even
100.
surprised
It's not 10,
anymore.
20,000 here and there. It is absolutely nuts. And I think this is what people are realizing, that if they don't get in the market now, they may not be able to get in for a long time.
And it's true. You know what? When I go back to, you and I spoke about our history is very similar in the sense that I came from his industry before I came into real estate. And when I go back and think about the people that got in back in those years in the early 2000s, if they never got in then, I don't know that they would have got in at this point in time.
You're totally right. But here's another interesting part, is that even though the real estate prices have gone up so much, and I've had a lot of these conversations with clients coming, it's like, hey, does it even make sense? Is it going to go further? Should I even buy an investment property? Especially some of my clients who we've inspired to buy 5, 10 investment properties.
Sure.
And so they're asking that, they're like, Ranjit, we've made a lot of money in real estate and we love it and so on, but I don't know if I want to buy at this level. And then my conversation with them is, okay, let's take a look at the numbers. If you look at the numbers, even if you buy a $900,000 property today, that property about 7, 8 years ago was probably around 500,000 or less.
True.
Right? Probably less. Right? I think the properties in the GTA, they're probably doubled in about 6, 7 years now. Right? So that was half price then, but at the same time, the rents were half as well.
Correct.
The rent really started moving when the individuals from Syria started coming in.
Around 2017, I would
Yeah,
say.
a lot of Syrians
I
started coming
would
in.
probably say
Government was
even a
giving
little
lot
bit
of money.
before then that
Before
the rents
that.
were moving up.
They finally started moving after a long, long time, actually.
Because then in 2008, I think it was 3 years ago, we had the government policies that changed the rental aspect,
Sure.
right? And that was the correction. So people are like, okay, going into this pandemic,
Yes.
right? People automatically assumed that the real estate market was going to go through this wave where we're finally gonna see that prices go down, things are gonna shift, and things are gonna be on sale. But the reality is, like, I remember speaking to a lot of real estate coaches on this, where we have one-on-one discussions about the marketplace. And one gave me an analogy that the real estate market is a beast of its own. That economists can't even predict it because it has its own cycle aside from the rest of the economy, and that when it goes through a 25-year cycle of change. So when their correction was 3 years ago, when the government stepped in, added new policies, and that was really that correction point. Because if you look at that, was a little softer, and then right after there, we're started to rise up. And you brought up also another point, and I call it my deja vu moment. As we walked into 2020, like I already knew that January, February were going to be tough months on our mental capacities and everything else. And they were also, it's the longer haul of the winter, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, I also knew that it was going to be interesting to watch the market. And walking into 2021 was just a deja vu of 2020. So prior to the pandemic, we already had pent-up demand and the same thing happening. So it feels like 2020 in many ways, because here we go. We walked in and, we're seeing it even at a higher level than 2020.
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning of the pandemic as well, we were thinking that people are going to start defaulting. And then we thought, hey, we've got this 6-month mortgage deferral. And then we knew at the end of the 6 months, there would be that deferral cliff, that after those payments that are being made by the government or the
And that was
payments are
only
being-
a small percentage of people.
the payments that are being deferred. And then we thought that this was going to be a big wild card, is going to be the defaults. That once the defaults start coming in, then the prices are going to soften. But that wild card is totally blown out the window now. That's totally gone. You understand that, right?
Yes.
There are no more defaults. You know why that is?
Why?
Then there are no more defaults because people have increased the equity in their homes. So now the people that were sitting on, they were on the edge, that they could have gone into a default and so on. Right now, they can go, even if they have bad credit, they have income issues or whatever, they can go to a private lender and take on a second mortgage. Or I've seen people that were in a default situation about 7-8 years ago, and then we couldn't do anything for them. We told them to sell the house. I'm talking about an actual example. And where this homeowner took on a second, this homeowner called me after about 8-9 years. And she is still in a tight situation, but she's been able to survive because she took a second mortgage. Then she took out a third mortgage to cover the first and a second.
Wow.
So
And
she
then
had
now
enough
she took-
equity to put in a second and a third?
Well, she didn't have enough equity. This is where I said no to her when she first came to me, right? But she was able to, she somehow managed to, the real estate prices went up, and then she managed to get a second mortgage. And then she was still in default on those, she was defaulting on those first and second, but she was able to cover it up by taking a third mortgage because the property went up even more. And then it went up even more, and she's got a fourth mortgage. So now what I'm trying to say is that people that are in trouble, they are not going to be defaulting because they have options. They can either go out and get a traditional equity takeout, right, line of credit. If they don't qualify, if they have credit issues or income issues, they can still go to a private lender who will lend up to 80%, in some cases even a little bit more. And so because the property prices have gone up, somebody who was up to here on their debt level, right, up to their necks, they've bought themselves a little bit more breathing room because
For
the market's gone up. So that wild card of default is out the window. It's gone now.
Wow.
So that is what we were thinking could be a damper on the real estate prices.
Yes.
So if that's not going to happen,
So there's
I don't
no
see
default.
Any,
That
I don't
means
see any slowdowns coming in, and I do have another wild card I want to talk
Well,
to you about.
I have a wild card for you. I was going to, on that conversation that you just brought up, my question, of course, is self-employed. I mean, our small businesses and businesses in general have been hit the hardest. And I think
Yes.
about, and I'm a true entrepreneur and grew up with entrepreneurs. So, of course, that they come first in my heart.
Yes.
And when I think about them and think about, they have families or their mortgage and all those things. So what options do they have in all of this?
That's a really, really good point. You're right.
See, I told you I had a wild card.
Small businesses are the backbone of the Canadian economy. It'd be nice for the government to step up and try to help them out. But basically what we've seen is the Trudeau government is how do I say this? Before they even came into power, they started saying that, hey, small businesses take advantage of the tax system and so on. And so basically, when they came in power, they changed the rules a little bit. We used to have programs for self-employed individuals that have access to a lot of write-offs in the first initial years of their business. I mean, and that's done by design by CRA, right? CRA recognizes that they have to be a partner in their success because ultimately, when these people start making a lot of money, they're going to be huge taxpayers.
For sure.
Right? But the Trudeau government came in and said that, hey, hold on a second. We've got two government organizations here. We got CMHC, and on the other side, we got CRA. And here was CMHC who was saying that, hey, if you're self-employed, you're not declaring enough income, we're okay with it. We're okay to approve you for a mortgage up to 90% of the purchase price with 10% down payment.
Sure.
And you can use basically what we call stated income programs that we know that small businesses actually make more money, but they got access to all these write-offs and so on. And so we'll be a little bit lenient towards qualification for these small business people. And CMHC had a program where they would charge more than double the premium in order to price in the risk for those types of individuals. So when Trudeau came in, they said that, hey, here's CRA's main goal is to collect funds, is to generate funds for the government. And here's another government organization, CMHC, saying that, hey, you don't have to pay taxes. You can still buy a house. So they eliminated that. So CMHC is no longer in that particular game. And a lot of these individuals, I had a conversation with Mr. Murnau when the stress test rules were introduced. And I said, you guys are really, why are you guys doing this? He said, we want to help the marginal person. The person who we don't want them to get hurt in the real estate by buying more than they can afford and so on. And I said, in reality, sir, you guys are hurting the marginal person, the person that needs help. I mean, this industry, the mortgage industry, is probably the worst at it. Lending industry in general.
Right,
we
because
kick people when they're down.
It's just basically rate increases in comparison.
Yeah, because that particular person now, they got to still live. They got to still buy a house.
Sure.
Or they're not going to just sell their house all of a sudden. And what ends up happening is they end up going to B lenders who charge higher rates, or they end up going to private lenders. Nowadays, the numbers are as high as a quarter of all mortgages are going through private lenders.
And why is that so?
It's because of the stress test, because a lot of these people cannot qualify for mortgages. So that's my wild card, is that if we continue to have issues with mortgage approval, do you think that is something that'll dampen the affordability? Because we're getting into states right now where, or stages where the income hasn't really followed, but the market has gone more than double over the last 7 years or so. So what's going to happen? Is the government going to allow allow more flexibility for affordability, or people are just going to be using the equity out of the previous house that they sold if they're moving up?
Well, there's a challenge there too, because there's a limitation on that, right? I mean, the government put those limitations on the amount of equity that could be pulled out.
Yes, 200,000 for a lot of lenders. There are ways around it.
So
He's
talk
a perfect
to him.
lender.
He knows.
Well, there are legitimate ways around that stuff, but you're right. The government is putting. They don't want the house being used as a piggy bank. They
Correct.
really don't. Right?
Well, so that was the biggest concern a couple of years ago, right? When they added that restriction on there because they were afraid of the debt levels.
Yes.
But the greatest, which made no sense to me when they did that, because the greatest asset that you have right there is the house.
Yes.
And going back to your original discussion on this, I mean, I just want to remind everybody, like Benjamin Tal, a great
CIBC
economist, right?
yeah.
And one of the things that he has always said to me and said to our members, in fact, is, if you think that house prices are high now, wait till the next 3, 5, 7, and 10 years.
Correct.
And he's been right. And I mean, this was his speech even 2 years ago, and look at where we are. I mean, so in terms of restrictions and where the market goes, there's a lot of factors that are still at play right now. I think it's really too early in the game to
predict anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's talks about even interest rates increasing a lot sooner. There's all kinds of talks, is what I say, right? Nothing is evidence based at this moment because we just started the year, really. I mean, the greatest
Nobody
thing
really has a crystal ball to it.
Well, TRREB does have some insight on
So why don't you
some
share
of the
with us?
supply
Crystal ball right here.
issues. No.
Crystal ball right here. Why don't you share Lisa Patel in the house? Lisa and Ranjit, this is a great conversation right now going on. But I have one question starting from Lisa, and then I'll...
He likes
Well,
to
we
start
need-
my way, right?
I think
Did
we
you
need to
notice
start
that?
asking him questions, right?
Hey, listen, I'm the host here. So Lisa, let me ask you, can we consider Toronto has recovered from the market crash of 89? Or is that something still that we haven't recovered yet?
You know what?
And if you have any data or stats to support that.
So I won't back it up with evidence based in this particular scenario.
Sure.
But I will say we've come a long way since 89. Our economy has, from 89 to even the early 90s. The early 90s was the challenges that a lot of small businesses faced because a lot of the big box stores opened. Sunday shopping began. There was a lot of transition over the years. In terms of the real estate market, we've only seen it increase and only strengthen. And I think that goes to said, like when policies come in place, I think that, all of those things and the fact that we have a stronger financial I guess hub over the mortgage market and everything else. I think that plays a strong role in those were part of the lessons that were learned in those early years to where we are today. I won't say anything isn't impossible, because there's endless possibilities. I mean, look at the pandemic, right? Like, even if you were to speak to, a spiritual psychic or whatever you wanted, right? They would have told you like
The
that
guru.
they didn't see it, right? And that they
True.
felt something coming, but nobody knew what it was really going to be. So I will say, like, things are going to evolve. Evolution will happen. But at the end of the day, I think that we're in a stronger point than we've ever been.
Sure. Actually, a lot of spiritual gurus and these YouTubers have made a lot of money because of
That's
their
true.
predictions
They're
on
experts.
pandemic.
Experts
right?
nowadays, right? On YouTube, right?
I
The
thought we
guru.
were going to do that after this. I thought that's our next show. Wait.
We
So
can.
my take on the 80s is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I believe the 80s growth was predominantly driven by the baby boomers, where the baby boomers were buying in the
It's the same right
in
now.
the 80s, and then maybe one of the last baby boomers bought in 89. And
Sure.
when you're buying a house, there's all kinds of different industries that are involved in it, right? There's us on the financing side, there's real estate agents, there's lawyers, there's appliances and
Sure.
furniture and all this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's involved. And so when they stopped buying their homes, that's when we saw a major correction in 1989. And it actually took about 9 to 11 years for that market to recover.
Correct.
So we totally recovered, obviously, from that. However, if you look at the individuals that bought those houses in 89 and then the market fell, one of the interesting things that I saw was when the market came back up, their mortgages were about half. Even in that case, even when, so I personally feel that it is not a risk that the market is going to drop. It's usually, if you're buying your own principal residence, because you got to pay somebody else too, anyways.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to pay somebody else's rent. If you're comparing apples to apples, right? We're not talking about going from a basement apartment to buying a $2 million home now. That's obviously different, right?
That's what he was thinking.
Right. So you gotta pay the rent, or you can pay your own mortgage, or if you're buying an investment property, right? In those particular cases, I think it doesn't matter. I think the risk is not the market going down. The risk is actually that the market is going up. That you're going to be priced out of the market.
That is one of the challenges. And in fact, there's a course that's actually held at Ryerson, and it's all about Toronto. And it actually states that in the textbook and in the program, that what you see, and I hate to use this analogy, but, in some of the richer pockets, that only get richer, and a lot of the poverty neighborhoods and so forth get dwindled out, and it's sad to think of that is the case. But even if we look at it, it's not totally correct, because if we take the GTA, for example, look at areas of the 905, like look where we are today, from the east to the west to the north. I mean, all of those areas, I look back and remember the days where they were only like $80,000 or $100,000. And
Brampton is one of the hottest market right now.
Look at that.
yeah,
Who would have thought that?
yeah.
Brampton. I never thought that. Well, all my listeners, those who are tuned in from Brampton, well, if you have any questions,
right now.
yeah.
I've always, why I like the Brampton market? Because
Why?
for a lot of our investors,
I've been trying to get him to Mississauga, but he's like, I love Brampton.
I used to be in Mississauga only, right? And as far as the office is concerned, but Brampton was always a market where the prices were low. Okay? It was an overlooked market, but the rents were very, very high because of all the immigrants that are coming over here.
Correct.
Right, and that's why I.
And then
liked it
you
when
also
we're-
have one extra bonus. You have a lot more industry too, right?
In what
You do,
sense?
Yes. Yeah.
In what sense? Give me an example.
Industry for people who are sort of starting their life, maybe not like super sophisticated jobs,
Exactly.
but we've got. It's a
Entry-level
blue collar,
jobs.
it's a blue
Entry-level,
collar
yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Plus, there is one more thing: people from different
Well, you
cultures.
also have you still have manufacturing too, right?
You do a lot,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And also part of the culture is like people coming from Southeast Asia. Part of our culture is to get our house ASAP. To
Yes.
sell. That's part of the settlement, right? So
Yes.
that drives a lot of people to buy and sell in Brampton.
Well, I think the Canadian dream is still very much alive, right? Of
100%.
home ownership. Like I
100%.
think that it doesn't matter what walk you've come from. The dream of home ownership is well alive, and that's what this marketplace tells us more than anything else.
And I think it's because, again, we're a multicultural society. And if you look at back home, the majority of the people own.
Yeah, that's true.
right? We lived in the same house for 300 years.
Yeah, with
Right?
big families.
And see, the crazy part is, though, we don't
I have to tell you a funny story that he
Yeah,
says that.
I love stories.
No, but you know what? I always had an analogy. You know, I always said, well, why do we always run to new homes? Right. And I said, it's karma. So I said explaining to people, it's karma. So we always like run to anything new, right? If we're going to buy a home, we want
Right.
something new. Why? Because karma, like it's clean. We're going to put our own karma into it. And that's it. Anyway,
Feng shui.
You don't want to buy a
Feng
house
shui.
where someone died in it. Huh?
I have a friend. She does
Or
this
something.
feng shui and all those things, and she creates the energy so well. And because it's all about energy. Well, this was a very good conversation.
Oh, you mean we're not going to part two?
We are going to part
Which
two,
is
but I'm
part
going to
was like
We thought
predictions.
you were
I thought
gonna-
we were going to do like
we'll
predictions.
do some predictions.
No,
Uh,
no, I thought we were going to become gurus now.
Well,
Oh,
I can totally
Where's the
believe
psychic
right now
hat?
the energy is so positive, and Lisa and Ranjit, they're in that flow right now, and I'm just listening. This is beautiful synergy right here with smiles. But ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back after a short little break. आप कहीं मत जाइए, सुनते रहिए गीतमाला on Chin Radio. I'll be back.